Warning, the following content contains facts and other language that is extremely blunt and holds nothing back. Viewer discretion is advised. So if you're triggered by facts, you may want to click off. You have been warned. Okay, now all the fact-hating people are gone. Let's Ben Shapiro this. Just call me the Tide because I'm going to be attacking your sandcastle. So sit down, I'm about to teach you some fucking truth bombs. By the end of this, you may even be informed enough to call people out on their bullshit. So get ready to learn, class. Recently, there has been some discussion about traps and trans because of this character from ZombieLand Saga. Some people thought it was a girl, then it was revealed as a boy, but then supposedly said they wanted to be a girl, so they're trans now. So the biggest question is this a trap or trans? The answer will be at the end, because before we can even answer this, it seems people are confused on what a trap even is. So I ask you, what is and isn't a trap? A trap does not equal a trans, crossdresser, soy boy, or a male. But a trans, crossdresser, soy boy, and a male could be a trap. At this point, unless I say otherwise, if I say male, female, boy, girl, or any of the sort, you can put biologically before them. 4chan describes it as draw a girl and then say it's a boy, which is mostly true but not fully. A trap is what looks like a girl, but is said to have a dick. I'm pretty sure you know what females and males at least generally look like, so let's not dive into that. The term trap doesn't care about your gender nor your gender identity, and yes, there is a difference. It only matters if you have a dick, excluding futa, and specific situations that don't fall under these definitions.
Are you gonna cut your cock off, Rusty?
Can you just let me think? I, Rusty Cage, do not want to cut my cock off.
Ow. Those are completely different type of traps, but that's not an issue we're diving in today. So if you look like a girl, but have a dick, then you are a trap.
But Six, that sounds somewhat like a trans person. So how is that different?
Because there are people who aren't trans that look like a girl, but firmly define themselves as a male, which would be considered a trap.
But Six, wouldn't it still mean all trans people would fall under this then?
No, because they have to look like a girl. You would be extremely optimistic to even think half of them look close enough to be considered a trap. So no, it wouldn't be all trans. And before you ask, just because you're cross-dressing doesn't mean you're a trap, because you still need to look like a female, which also counts out some drag queens. This is why some can be a trap, but majority aren't. And some can be both a trap and a trans. So yes, Lost Pause is 100% correct to call poison a trap. Now that we know what a trap is, do we consider it a trans slur? Well, before I answer that, let's take a look at other slurs to see what qualifies as a group slur. The word nigger was specifically used towards black people and was used to oppress them back in the slave era. The word was used to keep them down, and it wasn't used in a positive light. And it wasn't meant as a joke or friend, while it also applied to every black person. So yes, that is in fact a black slur. Zipperhead was a term made in the Korean War from when the jeeps would run over them on the front lines, making them appear as if they got their head into a zipper formation. It was meant as an insult. It was used as an insult, and is specifically against Asians. You see a pattern here? It has to be specifically against a group to be a slur against that group. Nigger is a slur specifically for blacks. Zipperhead is a slur specifically for Asians. But is trap a slur specifically for trans? No, because as we showed before, it isn't something that can apply to all trans, and it encompasses people that aren't trans. Under these standards, it can't be a trans slur. In fact, there's plenty of people that would consider it a compliment, saying you are in fact so hot I would fuck you if it wasn't for the dick, or find you attractive if it wasn't for the dick. Now, I'm not a complete idiot, just mostly an idiot. I know people can try to use it as an insult against trans people that find it offensive, but there are a few problems with using the standards saying it is a trans slur. I can call someone on the alt-right black. They find it offensive because they want a white ethno-state and don't want black people inside their country, because it could be used commonly to make fun of certain group of people. Would we say black is an alt-right slur? This line of logic can be applied to a few hundred different things. While not a perfect example, it should be enough for you to get the idea. If it isn't specifically against trans people, and only against trans people, and can't even apply to all trans, then it can't be a trans slur. You wouldn't call someone who dressed up like an Astolfo that looked nothing like a female a trap, because you still need to look like a female to be considered a trap. Now, do traps even exist in anime? Well, yes. To say otherwise is not only denying reality, but I think you might be blind, mate. It is unreasonable to say it doesn't exist, because there is a whole bunch. But is there any traps that aren't seen as trans? Still, yes. As one of the best traps of all time, the classic Hideyoshi, which ranked the first best male character, the 10th best female character, and the second best character in the 2009 Kono Light novel ga Sugoi. You can't watch a single episode of Baka to Test without Hideyoshi saying that he's a guy, and isn't a crossdresser. He just happens to try to get male clothes, but people mistake him for a female, so they give him female clothes. And even when he gets male clothes, they still see him as a trap or a Hideyoshi. He's one of the most iconic traps in all of anime, but is firmly implanted as a trap instead of a trans. There is no trap that is more of a trap than this character. There are traps in other anime that become fan favorite characters as well. As part of the anime community, traps are pretty well welcomed. To any show that has them will be one of the biggest shows to be talked about in that season. Whether it be Fate, Blend S, ZombieLand Saga, and Steins Gate with Schrodinger's traps. Even lots of anime that come out, the traps will become easily fan favorites. Now, I guess you can count out Fate and Steins Gate because it's a huge franchise, so it was going to be popular either way. But look at Blend S. It wasn't a huge franchise. The number one thing I heard from that anime is the opening, and the number two thing is people talking about the traps character. While it was already decently popular, sparked a whole bunch of conversation just on the mere is it a trap or a trans argument. Traps being popular also seen with Hunter x Hunter, and even characters in Hunter x Hunter like Aluka. Even anime that are so popular it falls under the big three, called Naruto, with Haku being a boy and looks like a female, and even by the show's admission and Haku's admission, they do identify as a male. Last minute entry, there's a show I really like called Tanya the Saga of Evil, being a literal male reincarnated in a female's body, undeniably a trans character, without being a trap or even a reverse trap. This is the literal definition of a man being trapped inside a female's body, and yet I never see anyone say that this is a trans character. Who knows, maybe people don't want to consider her a trans because the dreaded capitalism that the show critiques. It isn't a critique on capitalism. There's one last thing we need to look at. There will be articles linked to show that the word trap gets people killed. A man who was going to sleep with a girl, but found out she had a dick, and then murdered him. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say this is an appropriate reaction to that situation. But using a few articles like this isn't enough data to correlate that there's a significant problem with the word trap to warrant this. But a few things about this. 1. If the word didn't exist, they would have more than likely still have done this. Because he thought she didn't have a dick, and wanted her to not have a dick because, spoiler alert, what you are attracted to isn't based on your gender, but rather their biological sex. Although I can't say for sure that's the context. Let's just say it's a pretty good hunch, based off that people use words to define a thing. And it was far more likely that he said that because of what he saw, and what he saw triggered that reaction. Not saying it was justified, because an explanation is different from a justification. The second thing, for this situation, let's say he did it 100% for a fact, that because it was the word trap existed. Now, to claim that there's a significant amount of people that are affected by the word itself, you need data to prove that this isn't something that happened as little as 50-ish times. You need to show that this is something that happens pretty often, and not X person kills trans. No. We need X person kills trans because he called them a trap. Preferably Florida man, and a lot of them. I could say we live in a matriarchy, because there's a girl that wanted to have sex with a man, and when he said no, she pulled out a knife and stabbed him, and was still let go. There was even a bouncer that refused to fight back against a female, because he knew if he did, he would have been the one in jail, so she strangled him until he passed out. Come on, man, you're a bouncer. Here's an article that females try to ruin a man's life for, as they say, they just didn't like him, and had zero repercussions for doing so. But this would be disingenuous, as most of the time, they would be punished for these kinds of things. Now, I know females normally have a severely low sentencing gap. I'm not arguing that, because there is a difference between being a matriarchy and gynocentrism, so that females have a lot more slack. But a few cases doesn't mean it is true in general. I mean, I could probably make an argument for other countries being matriarchal, but America isn't there yet. And that is the difference between an emotional argument and a factual argument. One of the few types of an emotional argument would be bringing in a few examples and try to portray the whole nation as like that. A factual argument would bring in statistics of every reported case to prove it. People that use emotional arguments usually make it because they don't have facts on their side. You can make any case based off an emotional argument because there will always be a person who has done something. You can't account for crazy unless you go full authoritarian. And you shouldn't conform all of society because a crazy person said something or did something. Thus, no one is allowed to use X word or do X thing. And that would be the lunatics who's running the asylum. You can't make everyone follow the rules because some crazy person did something and it didn't have some wildly significant result. So with all this, we get back to the question I asked at the very beginning. Is this character a trap or trans? Well, ironically memed at me on Twitter for this answer. When I first saw it, I thought it was a joke. But when he at me, I see he wasn't joking. Although he tries to imply that we think you have to have gender dysphoria to be a transgender, which is not my standards. Nor do I say you have to chop your dick off, because I know what the surgery entails and the side effects of it. I wouldn't recommend that on anyone unless it's either that or death. My standard to consider you to be a transgender is an individual that transiently or permanently with a gender that is different from their natal gender, as defined by the American Psychiatric Association, APA for short. Or in layman's terms, if you believe you are a different gender than what you are born with, then you are a trans. And that is because transgender is an umbrella term that holds a lot of other terms with it. So yes, Lily is 100% a trap, but a trap can also be a trans. So, is Lily a trans? Well, there's a problem with this. For one, Lily never says that she believes she's a different gender than the one she was born with. And one more time, gender and gender identity are different. Links to PSA 6's videos, because I don't want to make this video 20 minutes longer than it has to be. Ironically, Meme says she's a trans because she's a trans, which is circular logic, so I'll go to the next point. She died of shock because she was born a boy, which, if that was true, she would die every time she had to go take a piss. She died for many reasons all at once. She originally became someone on TV because she wanted to impress her dad, and she wanted to look like a female, and everyone believed she was a female, and they would figure out that she was a male. Her dad told her that she wouldn't look like that forever, which increased her stress, and started to grow hair on her legs to increase her stress even more, and then she found out there was hair on her face. It was the tipping point because she knew a few things would happen. 1, she wouldn't be able to pass as a female on TV. 2, they would get rid of her because she was actually a he. 3, their life would be completely changed because the dad quit his job to become a manager for her, and if she failed then, her dad would also be out of the job. 4, she has been stressed with overwork, which you could see with how exhausted she was. 5, she was stressed out because she wanted to do all of it to make her dad happy, yet it made her not able to do anything besides watch TV with him. Although with all this, I personally would still err on the side that Lily is either a trans, or at least has trans tendencies, because it isn't confirmed via them saying she believes she was born the wrong gender. It looks to be up to interpretation, because that is the stage name. Lily being a stage name can be seen as in multiple ways, because on stage, She wants to be seen as a girl because she likes being feminine. But that is her stage name, not the real Lily. Your identity on the stage isn't the same as if you are living your life normally, as it is very common for people in anime to have multiple personalities, one for the stage and one for their day-to-day life. But Lily is stuck being Lily forever because she's a zombie. She has no choice but to be Lily. She is in a loop, always being her stage self. That is not a confirmation that she wouldn't be okay with being a male if all that stress wasn't on her, or if she didn't have to be on stage. And there's also no confirmation that she wouldn't be okay with just being feminine-like. The reason is because the anime didn't want to beat you over the head with it. They wanted to imply it, but not outright say it. And what this does is this: those who want to believe Lily is a trans can believe she's a trans, and those who want to not believe she's a trans can believe she isn't a trans. Although the second thing I wanted to talk about when talking about this, let's just say I got some outsider information that Crunchyroll allegedly changed the subtitles to imply that she was a trans, instead of wanting to look like a trap, because allegedly the original translation was Lily wanting to look more feminine, not actually be a girl. If that is true, then this argument is thrown out the window, and she is only a trap, not both. Now people can link tweets like this to prove that she is a trans from the English ZombieLand Saga Twitter, but that Twitter is ran by, you guessed it, Crunchyroll. And anyone who disagrees with Crunchyroll, let's just say your tweets are unavailable. There is also Crunchyroll is claiming that this is the best trans character in all of anime. Objection! Whoever made that claim really needs to watch more anime. I don't really care whether or not you see this character as trans or not, but there is a few things, ironically memed. Don't take a joke argument I was having to be my serious argument. Literally right above that chat that you happened to cut off, we were arguing whether or not What the What was a futa idol, and if What the What can be an idol because it was a futa. How could you think that is a fully serious stance? My god. Oh my god. Secondly, Crunchyroll, if this is true, please stop. We already saw what happened to Funimation. I would prefer not needing an Anigate in the future, because remember, Gamergate was a reaction to a business calling their customers sexist. I could easily see the same thing happening here, except with transphobic in the mix. Third, this show isn't all that good. Nothing very bad, but nothing really good. I'm surprised Appa Bend even got so emotional over episode 8. Hell, episode 9 was better, and that was just average. Don't expect a video on this in the future, because it isn't good enough for me to praise, but it isn't bad enough for me to tear apart. This show is just a bit below average. So, objectively, statistically, and definitionally, traps exist, and it isn't a trans slur. Anyone that argues against this is literally arguing against facts. It is like saying 2 + 2 = 4, and then someone wants to argue on why it equals 5. You can argue against it, but you will still end out wrong. This isn't some subjective argument. This is in fact an objective argument that needs a great foundation to argue this. I ultimately would rather people learn one important lesson through all of this. When it is used against you, words only have the power you give it. This doesn't account for slander because of public perception, but I mean you can learn not to be offended over every little thing, because I have been on the internet since I was about 10 years old. Let's just say I grew a thick skin at a young age. Although I do love to fight in the comments, I'm not really offended by any of it. I'm not saying you can just be, okay, I'm no longer offended, nor am I saying you should jump off into the deep end of a swimming pool to figure this out. The human body is just like a muscle, and the more you shield yourself from offensive things, the more you refuse to let it grow. If you let it grow, the less things that will personally get to you and offend you. You will become a better person from then on. You won't be upset when someone calls you a certain name, which is great for your mental health because you won't care if someone insults you in general and won't get hung up on them. Which do you think is more likely to happen anyways? Change everyone you will ever interact with to stop using the word trap, or figure out a way to no longer be offended by it, so everyone that says trap will no longer get to you. Besides, it is also better to learn to not get offended by it, for the transphobic people that want to use it in a possibly offensive way. They will use it to get to you if it upsets you, if it offends you. But if you aren't offended by it, you take the power away from them. So I say we should take back the word trap and show why it isn't a transphobic slur. So let's just all talk about the anime instead of worrying about a trope that has existed for many years and has been in the anime community while it was being built, but now is considered problematic. Because talking about the show is much more worthwhile than just talking about some perceived offense about something. I just wanted to watch my Japanese animes. Please don't change that. Please don't change that. Hey, if you like the edits on this video, then you should check out KaiserTrigger's channel, as he was the one that did 95% of the edits. And if you like the content I put out, come join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I'll link PSA Stitch's videos in the description. And as always, I bid you adieu. Thanks for watching.